bring his notebook out for the day.
Is there a place where I can drop the mail?
That's funny.
Yeah, but we have a mail room.
Down the hall.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is Brandon not coming?
Warm it up for everybody out there.
No.
Nobody
I didn't
complained.
hear from him. I thought he was.
You know, this time last month, we were all freezing. We have some business. I'm going to break away from the agenda here real quick. Some business that was brought to my attention. Another one of our committees had heard a presentation, the Women's Home.
Valparaiso Women's Association.
Valparaiso Women's Association, and that committee had shuffled them out of consideration of receiving any funds. And there are some mitigating circumstances here. I was contacted by several individuals asking if this board would entertain listening to whether or not we wanted to judge that application on this board. And that will certainly be a decision, not one that I make, but this board will make. But I'm going to turn it over to Jesse, if you could give us a few more details about.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. I don't believe that they actually made a presentation to the other committee. I think the application itself was rejected prior to any presentation being made. And I also was contacted, and I'm not here in any way to advocate one way or another for an applicant, other than for them to be heard. I think we can, as an amazing job as Vicki and Scott McClure have done, and I think possibly that was given to, and I believe maybe the applicant also indicated it was a nonprofit, but my work as a trustee has brought me into work with the Valparaiso Women's Association, mainly for the fact that they house women who otherwise would not have a place to live. And they provide housing at a very reduced rate. And in fact, some of the women can stay up to 3 years. And these are individuals who would otherwise not be able to find a place to live. And from my own experience as a trustee, I would say many of the individuals living within the Valparaiso Women's Association's home do suffer from some type of mental health issue, an addiction issue. Many of the women are transitioning out of halfway houses who do have a limit on how long someone can stay there, and so they need, more transition, a bridge back into the community, and the Valparaiso Women's Association can present that to them. And I know that the application was rejected from the nonprofit committee, maybe because it didn't fit right into their paradigms. And again, this is no fault of anyone. Everyone's done just an amazing job. I was hoping that maybe we could allow them at least. Their application wasn't late. It was complete. It was in on time. But and I know that now, if they were to be allowed to present to the mental health committee, that they would reduce what their original ask was, and they can do that. And so I was just here to advocate for them to just be allowed to be heard by our committee and tell us some about how they do house women within Porter County.
So do we need a motion?
Well, we'll need a motion as to whether or not this board cares to listen to their presentation.
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Discussion?
It needs to be roll call.
No discussion on the motion?
Well, yeah, I'd like to.
Because I had a couple of
Was
questions.
this, what committee was this originally presented to?
Social nonprofits was the original. I think what's key here is that they never presented. It wasn't a case where they presented and then we threw them out. I chair that committee as well. There are different reasons why we whittled a large list of applicants down. As we've said, I think we got $54 million worth of requests and $27 or $28 million worth of funds to hand out. So something had to give. I personally feel, and this is just me personally, I don't think that we should be so tight with what we're doing up here where something like this, an applicant who never even got the opportunity to present doesn't get an opportunity if this board feels it's willing to give that opportunity.
How many more did you whittle out?
I think there was a total of 6 applications.
Well, my question was, if we do this, if we vote in favor of this motion, when are we going to hear it? Is it going to be at the end of tonight? When will we get the paperwork?
I think that, well, I sent out the application to everyone. I think everyone on the board had received the email. And this morning, Greg, you received it, right?
I do. It's right here.
And so I think the easiest would be to hear them tonight so we don't have to set another meeting. You know, this is our last meeting. So that's what would be my suggestion, although I'm a non-voting member, so, I mean, I'm just...
Well, let me just share with the group, I think that we had 9 total groups, I'm on that committee as well, that did not make it to the presentation stage. And I think, I would say all 9 probably do great work. You know, I guess if we have a process here that, I mean, it was a vote of 4 no's to 1 yes for people on that committee to not advance this group for whatever reason. I mean, you know, I believe that they do outstanding work. I think that all these organizations do great work, but at what point does this board and what we are commissioned to do, and we start making decisions, and now somebody gets, you know, we get emails because somebody's disappointed, are we going to review just this group, or are we going to go back and review the other 8 that didn't make it to the presentation stage? And I'm not disputing, you know, the work that they do.
He did
But
make
at
a
some
good
point,
point,
we have to
though.
have a process and say, this is our process, we voted, and the process at that time was a unanimous vote on what was going to proceed. You know, I understand that, you know, we might get some feedback, but we go back and review and just say, let's just have all of them. Because that was part of it, to try and kind of filter this down to a manageable.
Well, Mike, I think
process.
you make some strong points. The only thing I'll say about that is this is the only one that board eliminated that has asked us for a second at bat.
As of now.
That's true.
Well, we'll be done at the close of business today.
I'm sorry?
We'll be done as far as presentations.
Well, you know, I guess I'm just looking at the process.
No,
We haven't talked
no,
about the process.
I understand.
think
I understand.
you mentioned the process at one time.
Yep.
Jim, you voted no
Yep,
on the original.
sure did.
And we either have a process, or we're going to start making exceptions to the process and open it up to, you know, I'm just trying to say, you know, how much credibility we're going to give this process. I mean, we're spending, you know, listening to presentations.
Well, I don't, you know, I'll disagree there, Mike. I don't think we lose any credibility if we decide to open it back up, let another application, you know, do their presentation. You know, there's no you know, there's no guarantee that they're going to be funded, even if we hear them today. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee how we're going to score them.
Well, I understand there's no guarantees on this. I'm just saying that we have, I'm looking at the score sheet at our previous thing, and it was a 4-to-1 no vote. what about the other members, that voted no? I mean, do we have them reconsider as well? I mean, you and I are on the same board, so,
But it was that was that board's decision.
right.
Right. Yeah, this fits right in ours. I mean, it's not, we didn't pick who comes in front of us.
And again, it's not about who we're picking, we're not picking anybody. I mean, what we're doing is having a process that was set up by the commissioners originally. We have a process that, was agreed upon by commissioners and council and everybody of how we were going to do this. And now, I'm not one for, I like making a decision. We made a decision as a board for whatever it was at that time to not have this group present. It was a decision that was made. And, as we start, going back on previous decisions, at what point do we just keep moving, we move forward with the process? And that's what I'm trying to say is that,
Yeah.
and again, it's not taking away from any of these organizations, because I look at any of these organizations, bring value and do some good work, but at some point, we either are going to,
We vote on it?
make a decision, stay with it, and say, you know what, that's the way it fell with this process, or we're gonna just start opening it up, because we might get another call tomorrow from somebody else that did a good presentation, and at what point does it end?
I'd say we vote on it and let the chips, if we vote in favor of it by majority, then we do it. If not, then, and we deal with whatever fallout perhaps may come. But debating,
But
let's just get to a vote.
I understand it. Greg, I understand it for a second, but I think Mike makes some strong points, but I want to say this. This board, or any of the other ones, was not put together by state law or by ordinance. It was an idea thrown out with the Board of Commissioners. As such, there's, because none of us have ever done this before, it's going to be fluent to some extent as to how we see this thing through. Tonight is the end of our presentations. If that request or requests had come in with this one, we'd have a decision to make, but they haven't. And I understand that those who were kicked out of the process, and I'm just going to speak for myself, what probably had more to do with eliminating them from the process had to do with, we had to cut down on applications. It had nothing to do with, how useful the program is, or the organization, and what good it does. Because as you stated, Mike, you can make an argument that all of our applications have a use, and they were all credible. But as chairman, I don't think that we erode any of our credibility for this process by letting someone back in whose organization has been around for nearly 100 years, who does what they do as well as they do it, if we leave that vote to this board. If it's voted down, it's voted down. And I think you make some strong points. We'll see how the vote goes. You make some strong points. I get where you're coming from. But I think it's important. I think that this is not something we're going to do next year. This money's here. It's going to be gone tomorrow, or by next year. This process is this process. Again, wasn't created by state law. It wasn't created by county ordinance. It's a process that the Board of Commissioners had come up with. It's not perfect. And again, I don't think that by voting on whether or not to let this back into consideration, erodes the credibility of this entire process in any way, shape, or form. That's just my opinion. So we got a motion on the board to hear it. And a second. Vicki, I think it's important that we take roll call on this.
Jim Biggs,
Yes.
Mike Brickner,
No.
Greg Sims,
Yes.
Robin Lane. Yes. And Mitch Peters.
Yes.
4-1 to hear it tonight.
Well, that was like pulling teeth.
Any more business?
Okay, we're going to start with the presentation.
Could you please have the approval of the minutes?
Oh,
Yes. You have 3 sets of minutes to approve.
All right.
And that will clean us up, get us
Okay.
almost up to date.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. What date was that?
March 31st, April 7th, and April 28th.
I'll make a motion, so moved. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Okay. I call up PAC first. Mick, can you do this alone? All right.
We're all home front and corner.
If you would like. She just ignored me.
No.
Poor Jim.
What did I do?
He's having a heck of a day.
Thank you.
Okay, for this presenter and our other 3, you will get 15 minutes to speak. Mr. Ellis on the end there is the timekeeper. He will give you notice as to when you got 5 minutes left if you haven't stopped by then. And then there will be a 15-minute period of question and answers. Okay? Your time starts when you start speaking.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Christy Chervenak, and I am the coordinator of Porter County PAC's Recovery Connection. Next slide. PACT was established in 1971 and is a community-based organization that serves justice-involved individuals as well as their families through a variety of programs designed to address some of our community's most pressing issues, such as alcohol and substance use and domestic violence. Next slide. In 2014, after attending a host of community forums regarding substance abuse, PAC chose to address the gap in recovery support and implement a recovery center with the goal of establishing an organized network of recovery support available to all members of the Porter County community. To that end, PACT introduced Recovery Connection as a place where people impacted by alcohol and substance abuse could seek support and be connected with other recovery support and resources in our community. Next slide. Our physical location is at 505 Don Hovey Drive in Valparaiso. Our operating hours are from 12 to 8, Monday through Friday, and we also offer NA groups on Sunday at 7 p.m. Next slide. Recovery Connection is an all-encompassing community recovery center located in Valparaiso. We provide many different levels of support to individuals, both teens and adults, struggling with alcohol and substance use disorders, as well as to their support members. All services provided at Recovery Connection are available at no cost to participants. Next slide. In your files, I provided you with a list of our support groups and a more detailed kind of description of the services that we provide. But as you can see, these are a list of the major services provided at Recovery Connection. Next slide. Since the start of the COVID pandemic, PAC's Recovery Connection has seen our numbers double compared to 2019 due to the increased need for substance use-related recovery support. In 2021, the number of teens, adults, and their support members who received services at Recovery Connection increased 53% from 2020. PAC's Recovery Connection served 2,374 unduplicated community members. our referrals come through self-referral, community corrections, community partner referrals, and our local community schools. We anticipate an additional increase in the need of support with the completion of the homeless shelter, which will be located directly across the street from Recovery Connection. In 2021, Recovery Connection was awarded funding from the DMHA and Indiana Recovery Network, and we became part of the Indiana Recovery Hub project. We were one of 16 hubs in the state at that time to receive funding. That funding allowed us to hire 3 additional part-time recovery coaches, in addition to the 2 we currently had employed through a separate grant. Recovery Connection now employs 1 full-time coordinator, 5 part-time peer recovery coaches, and we also host numerous graduate and undergraduate interns throughout the year. We currently have 3 confidential office spaces that can be utilized by staff. This poses a problem in overlap of scheduled appointments and available space. Recovery Connection is asking the county for $50,000 to support the remodeling of our facility. This remodeling will allow 4 additional office spaces to be constructed into our building, as well as a remodel to our kitchen. And in your folders, I included the estimate for our remodel cost. The remainder of the funding will be allocated to furnishing, technology, and supplies for those office spaces. In closing, the impact of the pandemic was not only felt nationwide, it has had a significant, long-lasting impact on our community. Recovery Connection continues to bridge a gap and provide immediate recovery support for individuals in need and to their family members for free. With this funding, we will have the means necessary to continue to meet our community's growing needs.
That it?
That's it.
Did a great job.
Thank you.
You did a great job. Question. Do you have any funds that you will be supplementing these funds with to finish that project?
We do not have any additional funding. All of the funding that we receive through grants and donations goes directly towards our providing services to the members of the community.
Okay. Have you received any COVID or pandemic funds to date?
We have not.
None.
None.
Okay. Have you applied anywhere else?
We have not.
And will this be able to be contracted out and finished by, it would have to be completely finished by 2026 and then completely contracted out by the end of 2024?
Yes, the contractor can start the project in June, as early as June. And it would only take a couple of months to complete.
How hard are these figures? I mean, it seems like there's an awful lot of work here for $50,000.
I spoke with him last week, and he said that the numbers on the page he feels very confident about.
And I see the updated estimate is 36,911.03, and you're asking for 50.
Correct. We're asking for 50 to provide technology and all of the furnishings for those offices.
So it's not just construction, it's other...
It's
Okay.
other stuff as well.
And you would be able to provide receipts if you're, whatever you're
Absolutely.
spending on?
Yes.
So that, because how Vicki is kind of looking at it, is that whatever is purchased is then getting submitted to her. Vicki, do you want to maybe explain that a little bit?
Well, we're working on those procedures right now.
Okay.
First, we need to get through who's going to be recommended, and then we will talk about how it will all work.
Yeah, with the building cost fluctuating so much, I did add a little more just in case they do go up. He was unable to lock a number in because it changes every week, he said, but that's why I asked.
Any other questions from the board?
Christie, do you feel comfortable that you've whittled this number down as low as possible?
Absolutely.
And all of this will go directly into expanding your services?
Yes.
And where do you receive the majority of your operating funds?
Through the Indiana Recovery Network grant, that's one of our biggest, that provides my staff, and donations.
It's tax deductible.
You have any questions of us?
I do not.
Sure. All right, you did a great job, thank you.
Thank you, Christie.
Caring Place,
Thank you.
Nothing to give you other than a hello.
thank you.
Wise guy.
Start when you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. I am Denise Keipe, President and CEO of the Caring Place, and I've brought my executive leadership team with me. Teresa Jarrett, my business manager, and Bessie Newkirk, our shelter director and outreach manager. We three comprise the administration of the Caring Place. We're a small team, and we're a small nonprofit as well. Next slide. The Caring Place is the only domestic violence shelter and advocacy center in Porter County, serving the community for 44 years. We completed a capital campaign to build a new 12-bedroom shelter in the fall of 2019, right before the pandemic, thankfully. Our advocacy center provides additional space for group sessions, DCS meetings, therapist and counseling sessions, and so on. We provide all services free of charge for as long as needed, as required by the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute and our state organization, the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Next slide. As you can see in our mission, we have two key components of our programming. In addition to providing emergency shelter, the Caring Place also provides prevention and awareness programming throughout the community. We've been recognized by the Indiana Society of Innovators for the Amanda Forum, our Youth Dating Violence Prevention Task Force, in which we engage college students and teenagers and facilitate discussions with educators, mental health professionals, and parents as well. We have recently added to our repertoire the SAMHSA recognized best practice in suicide prevention, substance abuse prevention, and violence prevention sources of strength. We serve our entire community through our awareness and prevention programming, outreach, and advocacy activities, and this is the piece we are poised to expand upon to meet the mental health challenges compounded by COVID-19. Next slide. I'm not going to read all this data for you. You have it in front of you. I just want to point out a few key data points here. First, that domestic violence deaths in Indiana rose 181% in 1 year over the pandemic, and we all know that that's underreported for sure. Also, that of 30 states reporting on teen dating violence, Indiana is number 3. Our rates are higher than most states. Also, please note that violent relationship behavior often starts between the ages of 12 and 18, middle school and high school. Next slide. At our shelter, this data translates into real human beings. More individuals experiencing domestic violence, more parents with children in shelter, more protective order assistance, more children traumatized, and more requests for help of all types. We work closely with the Porter County Sheriff's Department and the Valparaiso Police Department. Also, we've worked with PACT as well. Next slide. This one is startling. Through November and December alone, we housed 97 people in shelter, and 53 of them were children. I think people forget that we have children in our shelter as well, all experiencing potentially lethal levels of domestic violence. These are the ones that are in extreme danger. The number of bed nights show clearly that we need to devote more funding and manpower to upstream prevention and awareness, to try and step in and assist before the crisis, before it becomes potentially lethal. Next slide. We are seeking funding for both halves of our vital mission, emergency shelter and upstream prevention. Both aspects of our services have been drastically impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and these ARPA funds would help us rebuild our staff and programming, mitigate wear and tear and added expense from the much higher census in shelter, and expand our Amanda Forum and Sources of Strength best practice mental health programming throughout Porter County. Through 2021 and 2022, we've been laying the groundwork for growth past the pandemic. As many of you know, in 2019, shortly before the pandemic hit, we had just completed our capital campaign and moved into our new campus. At almost the same time, we lost our longtime shelter director, Debbie Reynolds. The executive team, both CEO and CFO, announced their retirement shortly after, and the board embarked on a nearly year-long search for a new president and CEO. Then the pandemic hit, and by the time the new CEO was hired, that would be me, the agency staff roster had dwindled from 26 employees on payroll to just 12. In addition, all volunteer and intern programs had to be shut down during the pandemic. We ended up with a skeleton direct service crew at shelter, but unlike many 24-hour shelters across the nation, in Indiana, 7 alone shut down their 24-hour service over the past year. We were able to keep our doors open for those fleeing the most lethal violence. Our priorities through 2021, then, were building the new leadership team at the administrative level and rebuilding our direct service staff in order to start safely serving more clients again. Over the last year, as COVID numbers stabilized, we have increased our staffing to 18, which was no easy feat during this time, trying to staff people, rebuilt our intern program to fill staffing gaps through partnerships with VU, Ivy Tech, PNW, and IUN, every college in the area, hosting 7 interns last semester, 2 of whom we have now hired. We have also rebuilt our volunteer program. Another priority was addressing mental health, not just for our clients, but for our staff as well. The agency itself had undergone a great deal of trauma. To create a cohesive, healthy culture on campus, we partnered with Sources of Strength. I've worked with this national wellness program on behalf of youth for many years. Upon hearing they were expanding outside school systems into working with the Department of Defense and veterans dealing with depression, trauma, and suicide, I met with them to discuss how we might utilize Sources within our nonprofit arena for staff, clients, and community alike. We are eager to utilize our expertise with this programming on behalf of Porter County. Next slide. In order to better meet the increasing needs in our community, we sought out more new partnerships locally in 21 and 22. We have many partnerships. I'm just going to focus on some of our most recent, the ones we've created over the past year to help mitigate some problems here. Family Focus, you heard from Family Focus, I know, earlier in this process. We connected with Family Focus because we don't have licensed therapists in our domestic violence shelters. None of us do. We can't afford them. So we partnered with Family Focus. They wrote a grant elsewhere and were able to get the funding to provide licensed clinical therapists for us in shelter 5 days a week, part-time. So that is incredible for us and for our clients. Okay, this may be the only opportunity they get to get that. The Porter County Career Center, Building Trades, and Ivy Tech HVAC program are going to help us with free labor to fix our garage. We have a very decrepit garage. We need the storage and we need group space. So we partnered with them. Most importantly, food costs, incredible these days, especially when you have a lot of kids who drink a lot of milk and eat a lot of cereal. We became a member of the Northwest Indiana Food Bank, and we are going to save thousands on groceries. So we're working really hard to form new partnerships that will help us move forward past this pandemic. We've also partnered with Fairhaven Rape Crisis Center. We formed a Porter County Strangulation Response Team composed of someone from the Porter County Sheriff's Department, the Porter County Prosecutor's Office, Northwest Health, and 3 of our staff members. And we've written various other grants. We've completed a 3-year strategic plan, all of this over the past year. We see these American Rescue Plan funds as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get ahead of the behavioral health social services challenges in our county. We all know that substance abuse and domestic violence are our 2 biggest problems in Porter County. We all know mental health has been drastically impacted by the pandemic, especially among our youth. Next slide. Just last week, we worked with about 100 teens and teachers, and this data was gathered just last week at this teen conference. As you can see, more than half of the teens in attendance said they need to improve their mental health. Next slide. Every attendee rated the conference as either excellent or good. And if you've worked with teenagers, you know that's nearly impossible to get them all to say something was good. And most of them said excellent. And I think that just shows the need is there, and we want to fill it. Next slide. We at the Caring Place know that relationships are at the root of mental health for all humans. We are social animals. The intersections of substance abuse, mental health, violence for human beings are inextricably linked to our relationships, how we form them, the models we see, how we are treated and go on to treat others, the loving support or lack thereof throughout childhood and adolescence. At the Caring Place, we deal with the outcome of toxic, unhealthy relationships every single day.
5 minutes remaining.
Thank you. That's the intervention piece on this graphic. See, the intervention piece is right where you're going over the waterfall, okay? And that's where so many of us nonprofits are stuck because we're working so hard to deal in the crisis situations. We know that every demographic in our community is impacted. The truth is that in order to form healthy relationships, we need to form healthy individuals, and we need to start young. This is where upstream prevention comes in, before they go over the waterfall, teaching help-seeking behaviors, providing hope, building strength through protective factors. What makes the difference between the kid who acts out violently or turns emotional turmoil inward and sinks into depression or self-harming or self-medicating? Those are the questions we have to ask ourselves if we want to get to the root of the problem. We need to build protective factors for youth and adults in our community, and we need to choose innovative best practices to do so. So in closing, over the past year and a half, through pandemic challenges, next slide, we at the Caring Place have fought to build a team of advocates and leaders who are passionate about going to the root of the cycles of violence, substance abuse, and mental health. We feel the Caring Place adds a great deal of value to this community as collaborators. We are so lucky in Porter County to have so many dynamic, exceptional social service agencies. And I think more than ever before, COVID-19 pandemic has shown us the need to come together and collaborate to better serve the people of Porter County. These ARPA funds could help us build the staff and the framework for innovative upstream programming now and embed it into a healthy culture for our county for decades to come. Thank you for your consideration.
Very good, thank you.
I made it before the 15 minutes. Those of you who know me, I'm an educator. I have a lot to say.
You did a fine job.
Thank you.
Question, a couple of questions. If you were to receive less, what problems does that pose, if any?
It would just limit how much we can do. You know, it would limit how much manpower we would have to serve all the schools in the county and to provide parent workshops and, you know, all of those things. It would proportionally lessen what we're able to do.
Has your organization received any pandemic or COVID funds?
We have. I can give you a general idea of how, but we basically have 3 buckets of where our revenue comes from. 8% of our money comes from United Way of Northwest Indiana. 31% comes as a sub-grantee from the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute, which is reimbursement grants, which present a whole challenge unto themselves. And then 61% of our funding is self-generated, whether that is through events that we sponsor, whether that is through our capital campaign where we appeal to corporate sponsorships, any kind of fundraising, our newsletter, we generate revenue, small private foundations. So a good almost 2/3 of our money we generate ourselves.
As far as ARPA funds, we, the city has chosen us to select us to receive a small amount. We don't know when we'll receive that. And then ICJI offered some ARPA funds to all domestic violence agencies, which of course, that was earlier, a couple of years ago, and those are almost up,
Yes.
aren't they? So we did receive some funding through ICJIs.
But you don't know that amount from the city of Valparaiso?
They said 50,000.
Make them keep their word.
Yeah, we just haven't heard when that will be expended yet.
Fantastic. Any board members have any questions? Well, you've certainly been around a while. You've proven yourself. I mean, you're not going anywhere, I think. You do great work. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Certainly fill a void. I can't imagine if we didn't have an organization like yours, where, you know, especially from the law enforcement side of it, where we'd be today. But you did a great job. I was wondering when you were going to. I thought you were just there for emotional support.
I have so much more prepared, so.
You're very
He
good.
doesn't have to go.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Project Neighbors.
Oh, yes, yeah. I guess I was just going off of this, I didn't even look at that. That's okay. Yeah, no, I'm glad I missed that.
Thanks, sir.
Oh, thanks.
Pick up.
No, I was reading.
Thank you, sir.
I got 3 more, I was told to bring 13.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Paul Schreiner, and sitting next to me is Jeff Lewis. We represent Project Neighbors. I'm stealing a little bit of Mitch's thunder on this first picture, because in 2020, we collaborated and built Respite House 2, and we did a ceremonial wall raising, and it was such a great picture. We started with that. So the Neighbors Place 2 is what we're going to talk about, but the picture was the raising of an 80-foot wall, and if you look very closely, you'll see a slender fellow in a red shirt. That's my partner here, Jeff. He was
Yeah, you're witnessing a paradox in that a contractor and architect are sitting next to each other and not duking it out. So. Yes.
Project Neighbors has been around for 52 years, and the co-founder is sitting directly behind me. Lois, would you raise your hand? That's Lois Reiner. Who are we? We're an organization that's small. We limit our work to Valparaiso, and we have done a lot of different things. You can see the list. It's on the second page. I won't read it. One of the things that I'm proud of that doesn't get a lot of glitz is the radio station, and you have a member on your board who is now doing a show on WVLP, and I am told that Greg Sims can no longer go to the grocery store because he is mobbed. So we've done a lot of things. Hilltop Neighborhood House, we started HealthLink, we built or renovated over 100 residences, Neighbors Place is the model for what we are advocating for tonight. We also built Caroline's Place, obviously Respite House too, and we partner with Neighbors Educational Opportunities in Portage. Our mission statement is at the bottom. The picture on this second page is of a duplex we built 3 years ago. It was on the ugliest piece of ground in Porter County. At the end of Morgan Boulevard, there was an old garage there, and a couple of guys used it to salvage metal, so they were melting wire, the rubber off of wire, and there was debris everywhere, and we bought it because we could afford it. And we, obviously, a fire had burned the garage down, we cleaned the lot up, and this is what results. This is a little duplex that 2 families live in right now. That's the kind of work that we've done over and over in this community, and that led to the need that I'm going to talk about right now. So there's a picture of Neighbors Place. That's on the corner of College and Union Streets, right next to Hilltop Neighborhood House. It currently houses 18 single, low-income women. That idea prompted the collaboration with Housing Opportunities to build Caroline's Place in the old, what was the name?
Sun Appliance
building on Calumet Avenue. So we have 33 units. Here's the dilemma. We focused on providing meaningful, well-built, affordable housing for families with children. And then we get a phone call from somebody who says, I desperately need a place to stay. And it's a 53-year-old woman who has mental health problems, is on Social Security, disability income, and she can't afford an apartment in Valparaiso. Now, that's just one example. I get calls like that all the time. Because we focused on families with children, and we built 1,000 square foot or 1,200 square foot units set up with 3 bedrooms, you couldn't hardly put a single individual in there and justify the cost. So the idea of these little studio apartments, each one is 300 square feet. My initial idea was that it would be like a YWCA with the bathroom down the hall and a group kitchen, and everybody said, bad idea, and they were right. So each unit has a full bathroom and a kitchenette. We'll turn the page. Why do we need it? I think anybody that says we don't need to provide some form of affordable housing has their head in the sand. Recently in Valparaiso, a half lot, 66 by 66, sold for $125,000. That was just the naked ground. Now you got to build something on it. We're a popular place to live, and the economics of housing show that, with everybody's value going up and up and up. A lot of people are left out of that. Next slide. Here's the math. I'm not going to read all of it. If you look at a person working for $12 an hour, they're making $31,200 a year. Most of the people we house don't make that much money, so when I did the math on this, I just grabbed a number that I knew that was realistic. If you're working and you're lucky, you're probably making $20,000 a year. I'm talking about low-wage workers. At $20,000 a year, HUD says you can spend 30% on housing. That's $6,000 a year. That means you can spend $500, period. That includes utilities, telephone, everything that goes into the cost of housing. We have designed these projects to rent for $500 a month. Everything included: water, heat, air conditioning, over-the-air television, internet, anything that you would pay a bill. The only thing you have to have beyond this is a source of food. So this is a practical, common sense approach to providing housing for a lot of people in our community. I say this awkwardly because my wife is sitting in back. My office is in this building with with 18 units for women. So every day I go in where there are 18 women, and they come down to do their laundry in their PJs, so I get to know them all pretty well. Most of them have an income of $9,000 or $10,000 a year, and I take half of it in rent. But they are thriving. We'll see that in a minute. So how do we do this? Again, I stole a picture of Respite House because it's our most recent project, even though right now we're building a duplex on Indiana. We do it by using community volunteers. We hire out the tough stuff, the foundation, the framing. We technically hire out the mechanicals, but typically we do about half the work because we work with some very cooperative mechanical contractors. And these are just pictures of regular people pitching in. We have a lot of volunteers from Valparaiso University. You turn the page, you can see the wall going up. Yeah, we're on the same page. Just more volunteers. This is a picture on the next page of a unit at Caroline's place. You can see the little kitchen that's in it. It works. Apparently works because they're all eating all the time. Here's what we're proposing. This is, Jeff, talk us through that.
Oh, sure. Yes, I did. This was a few years ago. This was a version that we were considering 2018, I think we maybe started. It's an 18, this actually represents a 16-unit building, but we're proposing an 18-unit building just to make the economics work a little bit better. The intention is to make it really fit into a neighborhood, be attractive, not look institutional. We want it to feel like it's a home for the residents and feel comfortable living there and proud to live there. So you want to move to the next slide? The materials would be natural, sustainable. We use hardy board. It's not cheap materials that we build. Or homes that we build. We want them to last. We consider it an investment into our future and their future. Next slide, please. This was a site that, this is an example of a site that could be used. We previously owned a piece of property on Franklin Street, so we laid it out there just to see how it would fit. We do provide parking. Some of our residents do own a vehicle because they are working. So we provide ample parking. The goal is to have, again, 18 units that would have next slide, please. 18 units that would also have a community room. There needs to be a social space for people to gather and kind of get outside of that smaller living space. There would be an office for some oversight of the facility, and then the rest of the space is purely dedicated to the residents. Again, similar model, a small kitchenette, a single-use bathroom, and kind of generally just wide open space, and they really do thrive and fit well in these spaces. Next slide. Thank you. This is the second floor. Again, very repetitive, but it gives you a good idea how it all works.
On the next page, we've broken down the cost. We've looked at several pieces of land. We are now looking very closely at a couple pieces of ground and estimating the cost to be between $100,000 and $200,000. The building will cost $850,000. We will put solar on it. The total cost will be just a shade over $1 million. Market rate, however, it'll be about $1.5 million in terms of value, because we save about 40% using our system, which we have done for years and years and years. We're asking for maybe half of that. We will come up with the rest of the money. We have been able to finance all of our projects because the bank recognizes that they have a great deal of equity as soon as we finish. Is it sustainable? This project will pay for itself. At 18 units, we're going to bring in $9,000 a month, and we know from experience that it costs us about $7,000 to cover the mortgage, to cover the utilities, to cover maintenance, leaving a few dollars available for management, for maintenance, and for programming. Now, we are not a social service agency in the sense that we run a program. What we provide is housing, and very affordable. But when you have this many people living together in one location, it's good to have some resources to provide programming. So we do. I put this last picture in here to say something. Again, these 18 women that I live with. Over half of them have been there since we opened our doors. It is transitional for some. It's small, but for some, this is what it says on the picture. This is home. They're going to be there for the balance unless something dramatic changes in their life. And I am saying, I think somewhat passionately, that this is what we need. Some people can't afford 2,500 square feet or 1,200 square feet. But if we produce it, a lot of people can afford 300 square feet. Thanks.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Have you received any pandemic or COVID funds today?
Project Neighbors received $6,000 in PPP, Paycheck Protection Plan, during the midst of COVID. We have 4 employees, a small bank payroll.
Yeah, have you made application with the city of Valpo?
We did not.
There is no application. Valparaiso does not have an application, and they never have.
Thank you. If you were to receive less, this project, say hypothetically, we give you half of what you're asking for, you're going to be able to get this project off the ground and closed out by the dates set in front of us by the U.S.
Can I answer that by telling a story? Short one?
You can absolutely tell.
Okay. We had built these two buildings to house women, and I was at a wine and cheese event, and a fairly notorious Valparaiso character, whose name I will not mention, buttonholed me in the corner and said, "Paul, when are you going to do something for the men in this community?" like we had done. And I wasn't prepared to answer the question. I kind of babbled a few things, and he said, well, I got $100,000 for you if you do it. Well, this was 4 years ago. That motivated me to begin this process. And if we had an hour, I could tell you why we haven't got this in the ground right now, because it's not because we haven't worked at it. We have worked very hard at this. We're going to make this happen. Whether you give us any money or not, I think we'll make it happen. But it might happen next year with some help. Otherwise, it's a heavy lift. This is an opportunity not to make payroll, not to start new programs, but to create infrastructure that'll last 100 years.
I believe you.
So you're confident you can have this contracted by 2024 and then completely finished by 2024?
My architect says he'll have the drawings to me in about 3 days.
Yeah.
You're on record.
Might have some other people coming towards you.
We know how to do this. This is a complicated one. It will take some time. Respite House took us a year.
Let me ask you a question. This committee has listened to several like applications for shelter, or portable shelter.
This is not shelter. I mean, it's shelter in the broadest sense. This is permanent housing. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. Given the opportunity to explain to the board, why should we score you higher than some of the other applications that we've seen? Because, well, let me just finish. As you know, one of the criteria here is how many people does this help? And as you've stated, that this has primarily been a City of Valparaiso program or projects. convince us.
I'll give you several reasons. This organization is one that we don't apply for federal grants. We rarely apply for money from anybody. We almost always put our hands in our own pockets, ask our friends, borrow money. We do it in the community, but even more than that, every single thing that we do involves a network of people who show up week after week after week and contribute their own labor. But more important than that, they take ownership of it. They come back 2 years later and make a contribution. They write me letters and say how much they enjoyed getting covered with dirt and grime on a hot sunny day. It's astounding. There is a community that is served directly by the outcome that we're creating, but there's a community that is served by the process. I can't say enough about that, and you are all invited to participate. 606 Indiana, I'll be there tomorrow at about 7 o'clock in the morning. I'll be there every day for the next 2 months until that duplex is done.
Greg would know the right end of a hammer.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I'm going to get the person to teach you.
I'm going to tell you straight up, when we were doing respite house, we had a pact worker. This is a person who was mandated by law to be there, and she had her right arm in a sling because of some injury. And what am I supposed to do with this person? Well, we found a way for her to do meaningful work. So, Greg, we'd find something for you. I can do it.
I'm on record with that.
So there's 2 reasons. But the third reason is we're not a landlord. We own property and we rent the property. But more importantly, we have relationships with our tenants. I like to tell our tenants that we are partners in an effort to provide them a scarce commodity. So we expect things from them. We expect them, and you know, for a landlord, I don't ever have to twist anybody's arm to get their rent. I'll get phone calls that it's going to be late, and people will get behind. We have never evicted a person for non-payment. A lot of them go to Jesse over there and get some help. But we have relationships with the people. And that's how Project Neighbors started. That's where the name comes from. We try to be in relationship with people. We just happen to be different than them in a little ways, but we respect them and we try to nurture their success in this community. So I see the organization as being somewhat very unique. If that's not enough reasons, I can probably think of more of them.
No, I personally think it's fascinating how you've taken nothing and created it into what you have today. You don't rely on any federal, state funding or local government funding. I think it's fascinating. You know, one of the opportunities that I think, since creating these committees and listening to the different applicants in the organizations, that we really do live in a pretty special place where a lot of people give of their time and their personal resources, for individuals that are less fortunate. I mean, as a county commissioner, and I've been in office a while, I was not even aware that it was this many organizations and how fantastic that is. I mean, I think I speak for everybody up here that if I wish we could give you all every dollar you're asking for, because the consistency that I've seen up here with every application is that they've been accountable for what they have been given in the past, which is critical to us because we are handing out government money, your organization is no different. I mean, you obviously have a great business plan, some great board members and volunteers to get as far as you've gotten without government help. So.
I have a question. So if we were to allocate $600,000, you could get this built
Yep.
within the time frame as mandated by the government?
Yep. You know we can.
I do know. And you partnership and collaborate with other organizations within not just Valparaiso, but throughout Porter County, don't you?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
NEO,
Absolutely.
Yeah, NEO's
Housing Opportunities, you've worked with them on affordable housing.
We work with churches, we work with educational institutions, we work, I mean,
Okay, let me ask some questions.
Okay, sorry.
You're gonna burn up all our 15 minutes with stories. So, I'm not that verbose. So, Housing Opportunities came to us with a project in Portage. Gabriel's Horn, the trustees, came to us with a women's project, and the only difference in this project is it's affordable housing in Valparaiso. Is that fairly?
I'm not-
And it's for men.
it is not exclusively for men, it is going to focus on men because we have focused on women. I think it is technically illegal for it to be just
Okay,
for
I'm
men.
sorry, I wouldn't want to.
It's available to all Porter County residents?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So it's not limited to Valpo, it just happens to be located in Valpo.
We do our work in Valpo because a smart guy once said, think globally and act locally. And I don't
Yeah.
like driving.
And because of the army of volunteers that Paul's assembled, they're all local. You know, they come in the Saturday mornings and every other morning, so.
Thank you, that was my only question, thanks.
Well, Paul, once you get past your shyness, you're going to be a great presenter.
Thank you.
Great job, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do not have women's, somehow I didn't get the email.
Let it slide. Sometimes it comes.
Vicki, did you have that rubric? Valparaiso Women's Association?
I didn't know. There's only 5.
I still can't figure it out.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Oh, by now you understand the rules?
You know what? We're learning so much tonight, and, you know, I've got to say, thank you so much for letting us be here, and I'm sorry, we don't know any of this. We are so brand new.
We don't have any handouts. We don't
Nope.
have...
And that's the nice part, is we don't have a sexy presentation. It'll be about 2 minutes, so we can all leave whenever it is that you want to.
Okay.
But, yeah, we have... we submitted our application, and again, since we're so new, we just chose anything in the box that looked like it might go to us. And I think that's how we got everyone kind of into a bind. We apologize for that, but again, thank you ever so much for this. So the Women's Club, the Women's Association of Valparaiso, was formed in 1895, and a lot of people know the house on the corner of Washington and Jefferson. But if they're like me, no one knows what goes on in that house. I walked past that house, I think I moved to Valpo in 91, and always wanted to go in, but never knew anything about it. Well, since 1925, that has housed the Women's Association. They bought that back then. And since 1925, we have pretty much been providing housing for women who do not have the means to go anywhere else. We, some of our tenants, we only have 9 rooms, one of which is a caretaker's apartment, someone that we will actually give the apartment for free so that she can take care of the building and the grounds for us. But some of the people come from Alice's house. They are people who need to be able to live independently before they go into the world again, maybe even get custody of their kids again. So the house gives them an opportunity to show that they are able to do that. The women have a sleeping room, they share bathrooms, they share a kitchen, they share household duties, and they have to be able to trust each other, they have to be able to work together. So these are skills that they can gather on their way out the door. But the other women that we have living in our house, are literally women who are completely bereft. They might be women who are 68, 70 years old, whose husband either died or left them, and they've never held a job outside the house their entire life, and now they have to go out and find something. So they really don't have any other opportunities in several cases. We have a couple of women who have lived there for quite some time. We don't have any strong rules about how long you can stay when you have to leave, because we try to work with these women individually as they come. There is no one-size-fits-all for anything. Originally, we were asking for $490,000 to help us with our house. It is one of the few remaining Charles Lemke structures in Valparaiso, which is why it's kind of such a big deal. But there's a lot of money, there are a lot of organizations and very little money, and so many places that are deserving of this. So we're taking ours down to $80,000. $80,000 allows us to create or actually renovate 3 bathrooms for the ladies. Currently, for all 9 women, we have 1 bathroom with a shower. That bathroom is also threatening to fall through to the floor below it. Again, Carrie and I are brand new. We were kind of strong-armed by someone when we walked into the door one day. Jane Schreiner. I don't know if you've told Jane no ever in your life. It doesn't work very well.
That's cool.
The organization has definitely faltered in the past 20 years. As women have gained jobs, there are fewer women who are out there who can do this kind of work that needs to be done for other women. So it's a very small group of women now working for the club. So Carrie and I are doing our darndest to revitalize it, to rebuild interest, to create some programs that would be appreciated by the modern woman, if you want to say, because we're modern, aren't we? So anyway, $80,000 will provide for 3 bathrooms for the women and help remodel the kitchen. Again, these women have to work together. They have to clean together. They have to trust each other. They have to prove to the world that they have coping and living skills. And so, again, we have these bathrooms that are from 1925 that need new plumbing. They need new wiring. I mean, that, quite frankly, is our ask, is $80,000 to give them something to keep clean and to make sure they're presentable to the rest of the world. Let me also kind of strongly say that these women are not in shelter. I need to go to Paul Schreiner speaking. Yeah, because what he says is correct. These are homes for these women. They are not shelters. They're not things that they're shuffling in and out of. So they take a lot of pride in it. And I know that it was suggested that anyone who ever wants to go through the house, I'm here to bring you through the house and show you the way that they live. It's adorable. If you have essentially a 14 by 10 foot room to call your own, and that's all that you have, they make it work, and it's phenomenal what they do in those rooms. And I don't know, I love it so much.
Very cute.
Yeah.
Home. Like the picture Paul showed, like they decorate their doors.
Yes. They put out little treats for each other. They cook for each other. It's pretty nice. Now, the Women's Club is completely self-funded. We don't have funds coming from anywhere but from the donations that we get from our members, which is a whopping $50 for the year. We have garage sales. We have tea parties that you may have heard of. But essentially, we will take money wherever we can find it. We don't want to be a burden on the community, and we don't want these women to be a burden on the community. We think they've been really, really great neighbors. They are not women who get in trouble. They don't create scenes. There's no smoking in the house. There's no drugs. There's not even a man allowed on the premises to come and visit. We don't even encourage that. So, see, well, you know, put that little camera on for your head.
You're just inviting me, and I just know.
We just have to let them know.
There's a special. We'll dress you up, okay, honey?
I'll participate in dressing you up.
Rooms are $350 a month for the women, and that includes everything: utilities, Thank you, my mouth is
Parking,
getting dry.
there's parking.
Right. And during COVID, almost none of them could make that. They are, again, women with very little income, and we're not going to kick someone out the door because the grocery store doesn't have the hours that they need anymore, or they can't get to work, or their place is shut down. So we lost about $63,000 to rents during COVID, which is kind of how we're justifying this. Our membership, again, fell away because of that, and we just haven't had the opportunity to catch up. Now that we are, if you've gone by recently, we had some lovely donations of people who spruced up the place, put in some new mulch, they're pulling weeds or doing things. I'm actively raising money to repair the stairs on the front of the building so it's not an eyesore. That's what's important to us, is to keep this beautiful, that Valpo's proud of it, and that we have something to offer our community. So there, that's us.
That was not 2 minutes.
No, it wasn't. That was like 2 minutes in my head, so bad.
Oh, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question. What happens if we give you $20,000?
You know what?
A bathroom.
We would do a bathroom. We would take, at this point, $20 is something that's going to be helpful. Not that that's a suggestion, okay? Not any suggestion. But $20,000, we can at least put a shower in the bathrooms. We can do one of those bathrooms.
You're confident you're able to get that work done before the time runs out here?
Thankfully, I have a
Couple of years.
contractor on a string who owes me a lot of favors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that really part of the historical?
It is,
uh,
yeah. It's
Yes,
on the
we're in the
registry.
historic register of places, yes, sir.
You get any funding at all because of that, through that?
We have not
No?
to this point.
No.
No, we just had that historical assessment done, but no,
Okay.
again, we're just learning, but it could be an avenue in the future.
Do you know of someone?
Maybe.
Look us up.
And you have not received any COVID funds, pandemic
No, sir.
funds?
No, we applied to the city, we were denied outright. We applied to the other board.
Why were you denied outright by the city?
Were we actually denied or just ignored?
I think that's actually better put.
Unacknowledged, I would say.
Yeah.
Unacknowledged, what does that mean?
Means we submitted an email, a grant, well, there's not an application process, you just email the city. So we emailed the city and never heard back.
You didn't get any kind of return?
We even asked for help from city council members, and
Okay,
They were unable to help us out.
okay. Do you, any of the board members have any more questions?
Will the historic designation affect your costs for renovation? I mean, there's so many strict guidelines sometimes depending on the type of designation, what you can and can't do. And
Currently, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Pardon?
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay. So currently, we're on the Historic Register of Places, but we are not an historically recognized building. So what we do on the inside is, up to us.
And I think that even if you're historically classified, that applies more, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, more to the exterior of the building than the interior
I
building?
believe so, yeah.
Any more questions? Well, you did a fantastic job, and proud of the board giving you another chance.
We're all about
I appreciate,
second chances.
I appreciate Committeeman, or Councilman Brickner's thoughts on, you know, opening the door back up.
You do some great work there, but I'm very familiar with the...
It's certainly understandable, but you're going to get scored, and we move it along. For those of you that may not be aware, is that this is our last meeting to interview. We will meet one more time for our scoring, and then our paperwork is move forward to the steering committee. The steering committee will will evaluate what we have sent them and send it off to the Board of Commissioners and the County Council. So, we're getting closer, so.
Can we talk a little about that process before we leave?
Yeah, but I want to let these people, let them go. Thank you all very much.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to say on the whole scoring process, for me, it doesn't really work to just assign numbers to them and rank them, because in almost each instance, I made adjustments. And I'll just use an example. The trustees' submission was for 1.8 million or whatever, but yet what it boiled down to was 300,000 for Gabriel's Horn. So if I'm scoring the trustee's submission, it's a 0, sorry, guys. But if I'm scoring Gabriel's Horn, it's a 50 or something. So without the actual figure in there, to me, just a blank scoring and send it on to the next level, I mean, then why are we even asking them if they'll take less? If we're not going to make some indication of what it is we're proposing. Paul came in here, I asked him, will 600,000 be sufficient for you to get this done? Yes. So if it's at $1 million, it's less than if it's 600,000. For me, it's more doable. So putting those actual numbers in with the scoring and the ranking between the now 10 submissions is, I think, essential, otherwise it's a waste of time.
Well, here's why. We're only one committee. There's 3 other committees, Vicki, or 3 other committees. All the scores and applications are sent to the steering committee. Us not knowing what these other applications have asked for, us not knowing what the steering committee's doing, I mean, it really handcuff the steering committee if we say, you know, we recommend this amount. We can do that. We can do that.
I don't understand how, that makes no logic to me, because there are 3 other committees in the steering committee and then to the commissioners, but we're just saying, okay, we recommend this, and then they're going to have to reanalyze financially each application from all 4 committees. That just doesn't make any sense to me. What were we doing here then? Why am I asking any questions? I could have gone through the paperwork and ranked them. So it makes absolutely no logical sense to me to just send a number with no indication of what that number means.
Yeah, and a lot of the presentations involved what they're doing with that money, specifically. So it
I
makes
adjusted
sense
every
to-
one.
Right. It makes sense. I mean, you're getting 500,000, you're asking for 1 million, you're asking for 80,000. What are you doing with it? I think that has a lot of weight, a lot of value as to the way that it's scored.
I mean, what I'm scoring is what I'm considering awarded, and based on their presentation. And to not put that number in there for all of us. I'm not just saying my number. I think all of us should have in mind, or we should come to a consensus here at this table on, you know, what number, why am I looking at that, what's that relate to? And, you know, and I'm willing to do that right on camera.
If I could
Vicki.
say, what we've done for the other subcommittees is that we list each project and the amount that they're requesting. So if they change their amount during the meeting, it will be changed on the list. But also, one of the other committees that has already taken the scoring, they actually had the discussion, and in some cases, they reduced the amount or recommended a different amount.
Right, so they're recommending amounts.
Correct.
See, because, yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have to put an amount with it, or it makes no sense.
Well, of course, we have to put them out. That's why the question was asked of all applicants, would you,
Well, then that's
Would you
going to
take less?
require some discussion over and above just turning in a score sheet with a 58 or a 22.
At the meeting that they did do this already, they every single application, they go over together, we
And they come to a number?
And they did, and then,
'Cause
each
like
person
I-
does still score on their own, but they have discussion.
Because I think we have to recommend a number, either collectively or individually, but, because you may disagree with me, for sure, on some
I'm
numbers.
just one more board member.
No, but I mean, if we disagree,
I'll disagree with you, Mitch, I'll
I
disagree
know
with you,
you
don't worry
will.
about it. You got someone up there, who disagree with you, man.
Just for clarification, then, the committee that did do an adjusted amount, they took a vote on it. They discussed it and they took a vote on it. So the committee as a whole decided, okay, we're gonna now score it based on this lower amount. And they talked about it, they voted on it, and then they scored.
Well, there you go. You good?
I don't know. Let's see how it rolls. I'm better because we're having the conversation. I'm better because we're having the conversation. All I'm saying is, I can't just in good conscience sit here and score these 10 things with a number without some discussion and consensus or whatever on what it is we're proposing to give them, because otherwise, for me, it makes no sense.
Well, we're going to make it make sense. We can certainly do it as it's been shown us to do. So, I mean, we'll go through each application, each presentation. We will come to a number. But I want you to understand, everybody needs to understand.
I'll take my heart medication.
The steering committee, or the board of commissioners, or the county council,
Will make their own decisions.
they'll make their own decisions.
I do understand that.
Now, as a commissioner, and I think I can speak for the other two, they're going to appreciate, because we're the ones that did the interviews, and I think the council would probably say the same thing, if I may be so bold, is that they're going to appreciate that advice or that information. But at the end of the day, they're going to make that decision.
And it's their decision to make.
But
I do not question that.
Mm-hmm.
We're following the process. That's all I've ever advocated for.
Right.
And I respect you guys for coming up with a process, and here we are right in the middle of it.
One word, yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's good to have you here. But our next meeting, when is our next meeting?
Well, you need to set.
That's the question.
I was just going to ask.
Thursday, we're at the same time, same.
The sooner the better.
Next Thursday?
Let's just start in 10 minutes.
I leave Wednesday for DC for a week, just on the 18th.
What?
Well, that's right, you're going with
So,
me.
before that
Remember,
works.
you had to take the kids somewhere?
Yeah.
Oh.
Excuse me, we can do it on Tuesday evening,
That works for me.
What Tuesday?
next Tuesday, the
17th.
That's fine.
I think somebody else wanted to speak.
What time?
Well, that's a long day for me.
5 o'clock.
It was up to you, well, no,
Oh.
it was available. Is it
On
5 o'clock?
Tuesday? Yeah, because that's a meeting day.
Oh, that's a commissioners' meeting
Board
day.
of Commissioners, recycling, waste reduction. The only time that's available is the evening.
What does the evening mean?
5 o'clock. The same time that we meet now.
How does everybody feel about that?
I always feel
Sooner the
hungry.
better.
Yeah, because while it's fresh in your mind, because
Yeah.
the longer you wait,
It's a long day I'm going to be in a surly mood
Are
that
you
day.
taking public comment, Mr. Cotton?
get your packing done after.
With regard to the reasonable expectation, is there a reasonable expectation that within the 4 different subcommittees, that the money will be allocated on a quarter basis, meaning divided by the 4 different segments?
No,
No.
that would not be my expectation
No,
in reality.
that's not my understanding.
Are we going to use public comment now?
So we're
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 17th at 5 o'clock. We're all good now.
Robert, I apologize. You had the total right to speak. It was the public comment section.
I thought that we were perhaps engaged in that matter, but
You did a fine job. We understand. Good question. Anybody else like to speak? No? So our understanding is we'll meet on the 17th, at 5 PM. We're going to go over each application, each presentation. We will score accordingly, or individually, and then we will grab a consensus of the board as to how much we'll fund each one of them. We'll recommend the funding. Not fund them, the recommendation of funding. So, anybody have any suggestions, an idea that's better than that, or you're fine with that?
Good.
Okay, it's good. Speak up, Jesse.
No, I'm waiting for Mitch to say something, I'm just, that's it.
Put it in my calendar so I can remember to be there.
You had that look on your face like, I can't believe he's saying that. Well, thank you very much, and that will conclude a recess on this meeting. Thank you, folks, for being here tonight.
I did exactly what he did.